Hello, everyone. Welcome to another great episode of Laptops on the Field. My name is Alex, and today I'll be joined by my good friends Hendrix,
Yep.
Bunny,
What's up, Doc?
and Jeremy.
Witty quote.
Anyway, today we'll be doing something a little different. Instead of doing a lot of topics in one big episode, we're going to do one topic in one small episode. And today we're going to be covering the opener, something that the Tampa Bay Rays have extensively done the past year and plan to do more so now.
Glad I'm finally going to be able to discuss this in more than 120 characters on Twitter.
Yeah, Twitter is not the greatest place to go in depth for sure. So,
the opener is something that, Brian Kinney had a chapter in a book about it. But more importantly, the first inning has long been talked about as the highest scoring inning in baseball. And people have talked about ways to try and damper that and to potentially get through the first inning better than the normal process allows you to. However, that's not truly what the opener deals with, and there's a lot of good reasons why the first inning is the most scoring-inducing inning of all of them. One, you have pitchers who just don't have it come out that day, and you don't know that they don't have it until they pitch. And two, you have the top of the lineup every time guaranteed to start out the
1, 2, 3.
Mm-hmm. But that actually gets into the key reason why the opener works. You would think that the main task of the opener would be to use your best reliever to get out the top three and just start the game off, with a guaranteed 0 score. But it has nothing to do with that, really. But it does have something to do with the lineup. And back in 2015, this was a new trendy topic that was coming up. And I want to ask if you all remember it, and you probably do because it's talked about a lot more these days. It's the times through the order penalty.
Yeah,
I'm familiar with it.
I think it has to do with a starter has to go through the order a certain number of times.
Yes, the times through the order penalty is the idea that the first and second time through the order, a pitcher will be able to get through it as normal. But through the third time and the fourth time, and the successive times through the order, there's a penalty by the pitcher, getting guys out and to being productive against batters. What's normally being talked about as the key time it comes into play is the third time through the order.
That's when opponents on base slugging, when it all spikes up after that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very negligible difference between pitchers' performance through the first and second times through the order, but then that third time is when pitchers start to kind of either get figured out by their hitters or start getting tired out. It's a combination of things that leads to more hitters jumping on pitchers the third time around.
Yeah, exactly. You surmised that pretty much perfectly. So,
yeah.
However, there was an undercurrent of statisticians who were pointing out that certain statistics weren't lining up with that thinking. And there are a lot of pitchers who don't line up with that thinking. But that's actually built into the theory around times of the order penalty, especially with what the Rays were thinking of in 2015. The idea is that our aces and true number one pitchers are not going to have that penalty in the third time through. The fourth time through, yes, but they're going to be able to get through better than the average pitcher, or more often the below average pitcher will, and it won't affect them. So you really only want to pay attention on the times of the order with your 2 through 5 starting pitchers. Your 1, you never have to worry about that with. It's just, is he not tired, and is he getting through the lineup well? But you normally won't have to pay attention to stuff like times of the order penalty. That's
right.
So that's the key thing that actually plays into the opener, because the Rays have actually, there's an undercurrent of thought that says that the Rays are using way too many people out of the bullpen, and that they're going to use up all of their pitchers, and that this opener thing isn't going to last because it's going to just tire out their entire staff. In reality, the opposite is true. In 2018, through most of the season, the Rays had 12 pitchers on their roster, while most teams have around 13, some have 14.
Well, that's because the Rays are smart, and they have a ton of optionable pitching depth, so they can just option guys back and forth from the minors.
I feel like the common perception I fell into this perception as well, is that because the Rays had so few starters, at one point they literally had one starter, and that was Blake Snell.
And then he got hurt, and we had no starters for
that's
like a
right.
week.
You had no starters for a stretch. So there becomes this kind of perception that, oh, they don't have any starters. They must use so many relievers.
And by definition, we sort of do use a lot more relievers. But we are using guys like Brian Yarbrough and Yanni Chirinos, who are young starting pitchers all throughout their time in the minor leagues. But they aren't so much so now because, well, they're not starting the game, but they are getting starter innings. They're actually getting more innings due to the opener strategy than they would if they started the game. And it gets into the times to the order penalty. If you, the entire idea behind the opener is that we are shifting the times to the order penalty from starting for the first 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 batters to with batters 7, 8, 9, or even 6, 7, 8, 9. So if you had to face any 3 batters 3 times and all the other batters twice, you wouldn't want it to be the best 3 hitters on a team. You would want it to be the worst 3 hitters on a team. So the Rays
7, 8, 9.
have found a way to just slide the pitcher's times to the order penalty to the lower half of the order. So that way you go through the top 2 players twice, and the bottom half you go through 3 times. Whereas if you didn't do that, you would just have to take them out the start of the 3rd time through, like we did with Nate Carnes or Jake Odorizzi all the time.
Yeah, that's the core of the opener philosophy, is that you want to move your frequency of plate appearances faced in your I'm not going to say starters, but like more long outing pitchers like Yarbrough, who frequently pitched 4 or 5 innings, but wasn't a traditional starter because he didn't start there. But yeah, the true purpose of the starter is to, I'm not going to say shelter Yarbrough, but guys like Yarbrough, but aid them by making sure that they're not getting too much exposure to the top of the order where the big hitters are.
Perfect. That's a perfect way to say it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll also add on to that in saying that you can also start the game and publicize you're going to use a right-handed pitcher, Sergio Romo. You could use Sergio Romo, and he's a right-handed
Marlins
hitter.
legend.
So you plan out your lineup for Sergio Romo, oddly enough, because he's a right-handed hitter, and then you have your left-handed hitter come in and get 4, 5, or 6 innings. And in fact, Ryan Yarbrough most often went 5, but he also would go 6. He went 7 a couple times out of the pen. He was getting really good innings.
He had the 2nd most innings among Rays pitchers, and it wasn't even particularly close. Mm-hmm. So it was Snell, then Yarbrough, and then it was everybody all the way down.
And we actually did use Yarbrough as a regular reliever, which kind of muddied his innings per outing. But the outings where he was clearly intended to be a starter without starting, I suppose we can call it, or a headliner, as a lot of the Rays team media were calling it. Mm-hmm. He was getting consistently at least 4, 5, 6, and sometimes 7 innings. I remember a game where Austin Pruitt got a save by pitching 7 innings.
That's pretty weird. There's a lot of stuff here that traditional scorekeepers are going to be scratching their heads with. But one thing that I'm kind of interested with this whole opener thing is, how is this going to impact kind of the earnings of the players involved? Like Ryan Yarbrough, it's going to be an interesting situation for him because he has a very unique profile right now where he's like throwing 5 or 6 innings, but in middle parts of the games. So how's that going to shake out for him? Are people going to look at his numbers and say, well, that's great, but he's facing the lower end of the lineup more often than other pitchers are. So might it knock his potential salary?
Mm-hmm. That's a good question. Mm-hmm. We'll have to find out.
We're the nascent stages still of the opener, because even though it's in vogue, it's still a very philosophy's lifespan. So that implies that it's going to end at some point or die as if like some kind of fad. But I think it's more than that.
I think it could stick around, especially if you have a great bullpen like the Yankees, and you just decide, hey, I'm going to play matchups today. I think that would be a great thing to do.
That's true. You've got guys like Jonathan Holder. If he wins a spot at some point, Danny Coulombe, the great story, you could use him kind of in the first inning. And then you also have guys like Jonathan Loizaga who can kind of take on that Yarbrough role. I don't know if they've like signed a lot of guys who could be starters to minor league deals. I don't think they've done anything. Basically, all of their starting pitching signings have been for major league spots. But I feel like there are definitely, like, even Holder himself could probably pitch multiple innings and be the more Yarbrough guy than, say, for the Rays. You know, they use Ryan Stanek and a bunch of guys in that first
another
inning.
thing too is that in general to help younger starters ease in and accumulate major league innings is that you can have them go 2 or 3 and be the opener and then have a bullpen game afterward.
How they get paid when it comes to like arbitration and free agency. So like when you're like considering that there's like tension when it comes to already existing salaries, like it's like how are you gonna like pay these young guys compared to what like middle relievers already get on the market, because it's not necessarily a ground that's been explored, because like there's not many like long relief, like let me rephrase that. There's not many like free agents that are classified as long relievers.
For sure.
But what I will do to respond to that is bring back to MB's original point that it's really for helping young pitchers ease into the game, because the Rays, if you look at the players who were used as these headliners, as I like to call them, because that was the term that was first kind of open to me.
I like that.
Is that look at the players we used it with. The only player who was not a rookie that we used as a headliner was Jake Faria, who was a second-year player.
Yeah.
So...
Or Sergio Romo.
No, Sergio Romo was not getting long innings. He was open.
We're talking about the guys that come after the guys like Romo.
Then
the
headliner.
The headliner.
Yeah.
The guy who gets the win or the loss.
Essentially.
Understood.
Even though wins and losses suck and nobody should care about them anymore.
Well, back to what I was saying. It was like by the technical definition, the guys that come after the opener are technically long relievers, because they come in relief, and 2, they pitch for usually more than 1 inning. But the only difference between them and long relievers is that they usually pitch for longer periods of time, since they usually come up through the minors as starting pitchers. So paying them in comparison to what long relievers get, what relievers in general get, that's good, and starting pitchers as well. That's going to be like an issue that's going to most likely arise as the opener becomes more widespread and popular.
And I want to dispel 2 things also in this episode.
Some misperceptions.
Yes. Well, one is that the whole rant that, what was it, Madison Bumgarner went on about the opener.
Oh, yeah. Mad Bum said, if you put an opener before me, I'm walking out. Like, he literally said, I'm gone.
And as I had said in a conversation with Jeremy on this before, that's not going to happen, because he doesn't have a third time through the order penalty, so there's no reason for us.
I mean, he does now because he's regressing, but like no way is a pitcher that he like with his pedigree. It's not, and also with his age, where he's a veteran of the major leagues. This doesn't apply to him. It's for guys like Yarbrough, who's entering his 2nd year in the major leagues. And to kind of grow and develop, I think it would be a cool idea if maybe the Yankees uses this for Jonathan Loizaga. It's for younger guys. And so Mad Bum isn't going to have some guy like Reyes Moronta pitching the first inning, because why would Madison Bumgarner fear the first 3 hitters of the order when he's an elite pitcher?
Exactly. And also on young guys this isn't the second thing I wanted to dispel. I just want to say this. It's just that this is typical baseball. A lot of starting pitchers throughout the minors get converted into relievers because...
all the time.
Yeah, it happens all the time. But, a lot of guys just have tendencies, and they feel more confident, and they feel like they can succeed better as starters, even though they don't have that third pitch or that fourth pitch, and they don't have the ability to go long. But what the opener does for them is that you give them that situation of, yeah, I'm starting, I'm definitely going to pitch tomorrow, but you get to go through the motions as a starter still, but you're only getting relief innings, so it kind of does help you out too. It helps the Webbs and the Staniks of the world, because it helps them kind of transition into the major league game, because they get to do their routine as a starter, yet they're being treated as relievers as well. And they might start multiple times in a week.
I agree, yeah.
Because Ryan Stanek was the one we used the most as the opener, not so much Sergio Romo, since he was our closer for most of the year.
Yeah.
And he looked real good in that position too. So he had an ERA plus that was pretty high. He had a WAR total that was like above 2, which is really good for a relief pitcher.
Yeah, for sure.
I agree.
Now, I also I feel like this will be the last thing to address on this issue, is how the opener is going to spread. And, it's inevitable that with every revolutionary new philosophy that's initially, most of the time, it's very analytical front offices and small market clubs, like, the whole Moneyball in Oakland. And then everybody figured out what Oakland was doing. And so then Oakland had to readapt. Yeah, of course. And now I think the same thing is also happening with what the Astros did, which also had a book published called Astro Ball, which was basically tanking. I mean, that's basically what it was. And I feel like that style is eventually going to run out to start working too, because there are going to be so many teams that are rebuilding in the same way that eventually you're just it's going to clog the bottom of the league up a lot. And some teams may not be able to get up off the ground, but I'm digressing here. I want to think about how the opener how other teams than the ones that have proven to use openers, like, I know that there are still a couple of old-timey managers, like, I don't know, Brad Osmus, who got re-signed. I don't know if Ron Gardenhire has actually been, like, very open to the shift, and he's used the shift a lot, but I'm not sure if he's super into that. But there's also a lot of very, younger, more analytical managers who I think could make good use of this. So
AJ Hinch
with
the Astros.
With the Astros. So that's going to be a big storyline.
I want to talk about a team that tried to reinvent the wheel with the opener way too much.
Oh, God.
God. That
Oakland.
was Oakland, because I said this in the outtake episode, but they completely misunderstood what you're supposed to do with the opener, because they had Daniel Megden come in as the fourth pitcher or the third pitcher to go against the top of the lineup in like the fourth inning, or the third inning. Like, what's the point? You've completely and utterly missed the point. He's still going up against the top of the order.
Yeah, and let me tell you, no time was their misuse of the opener more egregious than during the American League wildcard game, when the stakes were highest. Because started out...
I will amend that by saying they didn't really use the opener, they just had a traditional bullpen game on that day. But that's also something that's been tied to this, is that the rise of the bullpen game.
Why they had that. I thought that I thought that was, while in theory an interesting idea, I looked at that and I'm like, this is either going to pay out really well or it's going to completely blow up. And, well, it completely blew up.
Because the reason why they did it, and I'll let Hendo speak right after this, but the reason why they did it is the only starter they could really trust was Fiers, because Mania was out for the year at that point. He had just gotten hurt. So they said we could either have Fiers go out there for 5 innings, and he'll probably be pretty decent, or we could try and use some good relievers and effectively get the same result, hopefully. What happened is
they used Liam Hendricks in the first inning.
Yeah,
that's not a guy who I would think of when I think good relievers.
Yeah, that was being too cute. They should have even used him in the game. Like, they should have used good relievers. That would have helped.
For sure, yeah. They did have good relievers, but I feel like like they used Trinan in like the middle innings, and that was weird, and I didn't agree with that. And then they used, I think they left in Fernando Rodney for far too long. It was a mess.
Yes.
But I'll turn it over to Hendo.
Yeah, in my opinion, the A's failed when they decided that like Liam Hendricks would be the one to start the game, because while he had started like 8 games that year, he hadn't really like thrown actual games as a starter since 2014 when he started 6, and he failed in that aspect. Not only did he have like a 5 ERA in 2014, he also in like a season where he was primarily a reliever, he had an ERA around 4 during that time with like a higher FIP. So having that guy start instead of Mike Fiers would be probably not a good way to succeed in a playoff game that you're asked off to get into.
And don't forget, the top 3 in that lineup for the Yankees that night was Andrew McCutchen, Aaron Judge, and Aaron Hicks. That's the 1 through 3. And you're giving the ball to this guy Liam Hendricks, who, like you said, had like a 5 FIP.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, go out and just put out Andrew McCutchen, who's been an on-base god with the Yankees, then put out one of the best power hitters in baseball, and then you also have to strike out this other guy who's a great on-base hitter and has also found his power swing. Good luck.
Yeah, I was about to say, getting past those 3 guys when they get on base with a middling reliever, that was probably the worst move they could have taken, and it's probably the main reason they weren't going to succeed, because they used like the matchups all wrong.
Perfect.
It was like, yeah.
That sums it up entirely. They just used the matchups all wrong.
Yeah.
All right.
So they had a decent idea, but they overthought it.
Yep. So the key is to not overthink it, to have these openers pitch an inning, and then you have your headliners, who are young guys, young controllable guys, come in there and face mostly the bottom half of the lineup of the order instead of the top half of the order, to kind of protect them in a way, and you profit.
Basically,
that, my friends, is the open.
You get more innings out of young guys because you don't have to fear them going against the top guys 3 times.
Yeah. And whatever weird stuff happens with arbitration and salaries, we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, I think arbitration actually might help these young players out because they're still using stats like wins.
For sure.
Yeah.
Players are becoming more informed as much as front offices are becoming informed, because you're seeing all over the place now, like especially this spring training, you're seeing all of these teams invest money in this new, really exciting technology that shows hitters and pitchers alike kind of their tendencies, the underlying game beneath the game, basically. And it's just really cool to see all these teams take these chances on exciting new technology that's going to help improve the game more.
This is the kind of innovation I love in baseball, is where we're looking at the rules that are within the game and we are coming up with a new way to completely exploit it, like with the opener. I love it.
Yeah, and
I love the shift. I love the opener. It's just...
And we don't like pace of play rules.
Exactly. And the thing is with the shift it's been around since Ted Williams was.
Before then. But the shift is as old as baseball.
Except it's never been used to the efficiency and extent as it is now. And, couldn't be happier for it.
Yeah, because you got all these players trying to hit home runs, and they're usually like pull power hitters. It's that like, pull the ball towards the direction. So they just like put the shift in that area, and it works.
So one way baseball is kind of incentivizing 3 true outcomes, and in another way it is completely and utterly persuading against it with the shift.
Baseball is a game of contradictions and loopholes and oddities, and I love it.
I do too.
Yeah.
All right.
It makes the game so great.
Yeah.
And
that's a good note to end it on.
All right. Thank you so very much for listening. If you have any business inquiries or questions for us, please feel free to email us at laptopsinthefield@gmail.com or contact us on Twitter at laptopsotfpod. Thank you all so very much for listening and have a good day.